Have you ever imagined stepping from one country to another without even leaving the street? Or living in a town where your house could belong to two nations at once? On a map, borders appear to be straightforward lines. They determine sovereignty, split territories, and divide nations. However, a closer inspection reveals that certain borders are much more bizarre than any line drawn on paper would imply. There are borders all throughout the world that defy geography, logic, and history. They divide tribes, split villages, cut through homes, cross rivers, and even split continents. They are remnants of colonial aspirations, feudal land exchanges, centuries-old politics, and historical mishaps that still exist in the contemporary world. In some locations, lines on a map become concrete realities that influence the lives of people who reside around or within them. The most peculiar boundaries in the world demonstrate the remarkable intricacy of human geography, as well as the unanticipated effects of politics, history, and culture. Ceuta and Melilla, two tiny Spanish colonies on Africa's northern coast, provide one of the more striking examples. Despite being entirely encircled by Moroccan territory, these cities are a part of Spain and consequently the European Union. Europe has effectively expanded its borders into Africa, making this a unique position. A strong border fence guarded by border police and lined with monitoring towers spans both countries in order to control this oddity. The dangerous climb over these fences is frequently attempted by migrants seeking access into Europe, underscoring the strong human and political aspects of a border that crosses continents as well as geography. Ceuta and Melilla are striking illustrations of how borders can represent the conflict between human ambition, geography, and the law. They show that borders are more than just lines. They are opportunities, barriers, and even doors to quite different realities. The border between Barle-Nassau and Barle-Hertog in Europe is almost comical in its intricacy. This town, which lies between the Netherlands and Belgium, is well known for its patchwork of enclaves and counter-enclaves. 22 Belgian enclaves and 7 smaller Dutch counter-enclaves can be found within the Dutch municipality of Barle-Nassau. As a result, the town's boundaries physically slice through its homes, streets, and businesses. Some houses are located in 2 different countries at the same time, and the front door's location indicates a house's nationality. The home is Belgian if the door opens onto Belgian land, and Dutch if it opens onto Dutch territory. Residents are allowed to select their nationality in the few instances where the boundary crosses through the entryway itself. This peculiar system is a result of medieval feudal arrangements that date back to the 11th century, when aristocracy exchanged land ownership through a convoluted web of political favors and leases. These dispersed territorial chunks endured treaties, battles, and national unifications over the course of centuries before becoming established international borders. International borders influence daily life right up to the doorstep in Barle, which is now a living museum of historical oddities. Another remarkable example of a geographical anomaly can be found in Point Roberts, a small community in Washington State, North America. Located on a tiny peninsula just south of the 49th parallel, the line that defines much of the US-Canada border, Point Roberts is part of the United States, yet is physically separated from the rest of the country. This unique positioning means that the only land route connecting residents to mainland Washington State passes through Canadian territory. For the people who live there, even the simplest tasks like grocery shopping, commuting to work, attending school, or accessing essential services involve crossing an international border. Every trip requires navigating customs and immigration procedures, blending the ordinary routines of daily life with the extraordinary logistical realities imposed by geography and policy. Point Roberts is a striking example of how political boundaries, drawn without consideration for the natural flow of communities, can dramatically influence human life. The town has developed a unique rhythm around its peculiar circumstances. For instance, Canadian residents often enter the town to shop or conduct business, while Americans living in Point Roberts frequently travel through Canada for essentials. This situation has also influenced local infrastructure, services, and social networks. Despite these challenges, the residents have adapted remarkably well, creating a small but vibrant community that thrives in isolation. Point Roberts demonstrates that borders are not just abstract lines on a map. They have tangible effects on everyday life shaping the experiences of the people who live in these liminal spaces. Moving to the Middle East, the cases of Mada and Nawa provide an even more unusual example of territorial nesting. Mada is an Omani territory completely surrounded by the United Arab Emirates, while within Mada lies Nawa, a tiny enclave that belongs to the UAE. This creates a striking Russian doll of borders, a country inside a country inside a country. The roots of this unusual arrangement lie in centuries-old tribal allegiances and local land agreements. Tribal leaders and rulers negotiated ownership and governance long before the concept of modern nation-states took hold. The resulting borders appear convoluted on maps, yet the local populations have lived within them for generations, navigating this layered geopolitical landscape with relative normalcy. The Mahanawa example illustrates how human history, social ties, and cultural considerations can sometimes outweigh physical geography in determining boundaries. In a world where borders are often thought of as fixed lines imposed on the landscape, these enclaves challenge conventional understanding. They reveal that borders are not merely about topography, but are equally about negotiation, compromise, and historical circumstance. People in Mada and Nahua may cross between different countries without leaving their immediate surroundings, highlighting how borders can be simultaneously arbitrary and deeply consequential. In West Africa, the Gambia presents a different kind of geographic curiosity. This narrow country stretches along the Gambia River, almost entirely surrounded by Senegal except for a small coastline on the Atlantic Ocean. Its elongated shape is a direct result of colonial-era negotiations during the 19th century, when European powers sought to control trade along the river. The Gambia's borders were drawn less with practical governance in mind and more as a reflection of strategic and economic priorities determined by distant colonial administrators. The river itself has played a central role in shaping the nation's identity, economy, and interaction with its neighbor. It provides a natural route for commerce and travel, but it also physically constrains the country, forcing the Gambia to exist as a long, narrow strip of land in the shadow of a much larger state. The peculiar structure of the Gambia serves as a reminder that borders are often legacies of historical power struggles rather than rational geographic planning. It has affected everything from trade policies to political relations with Senegal. Communities along the river have developed interdependent relationships across borders, reflecting how people adapt to the constraints imposed by historical and political decisions. The country's elongated shape and river-defined boundaries are emblematic of how geography and colonial history continue to influence modern nations in tangible ways. Further north in Europe, Kaliningrad, a Russian exclave on the Baltic Sea, demonstrates how borders can create strategic isolation. Sandwiched between Lithuania and Poland, Kaliningrad is separated from the rest of Russia by hundreds of kilometers of foreign territory. Despite this geographic isolation, the region holds immense strategic and political significance. Historically, Kaliningrad was part of East Prussia before becoming Russian territory after World War II, and its location has since made it a focal point for military planning and geopolitical maneuvering. For the residents of Kaliningrad, life is a balancing act between isolation and connection. They live surrounded by European Union nations, each with its own legal, economic, and social systems. Yet they remain culturally and administratively Russian. Trade, travel, and diplomacy require careful navigation, and the enclave's unique position has given it a distinctive identity that blends elements of both Russian and European life. Kaliningrad illustrates that borders do more than separate. They create spaces that are both strategically significant and socially unique, shaped by centuries of history, conflict, and negotiation. Together, these examples, Point Roberts, Mada, and Nawa, the Gambia, and Kaliningrad, highlight the diversity and complexity of the world's borders. They show how lines drawn on maps can influence daily routines, economic activity, cultural identity, and even political relations. Whether through isolation, nesting, elongation, or strategic placement, these anomalies reveal the human dimension of geography. Borders are living constructs, products of history, negotiation, and circumstance that continue to shape societies in unexpected ways. These cases also emphasize that borders are not inherently logical. They can result from arbitrary decisions, historical agreements, or colonial ambitions, and yet they carry lasting significance. Communities adapt to these realities, often creating innovative ways to thrive within the constraints imposed upon them. The world's most unusual borders remind us that geography is inseparable from history and culture, and that the consequences of border making resonate far beyond the lines themselves. In conclusion, the stories of Point Roberts, Mada, and Nawa, the Gambia, and Kaliningrad reveal the fascinating and sometimes perplexing nature of political geography. They illustrate how human decisions, historical events, and geographic features combine to produce borders that challenge expectations and reshape daily life. From North America to the Middle East, West Africa, and Europe, these regions demonstrate that the world's boundaries are not merely lines on a map. They are lived realities, shaping identities, communities, and nations in ways that are both profound and unexpected. Over 100 enclaves make up the historically complex border arrangement between India and Bangladesh in South Asia, while Nepal too has a few minor territorial pockets. These societies frequently resided in areas that were cut off from their nation of citizenship, leaving many individuals practically stateless for decades. This resulted in quite unexpected human repercussions. The difficulty or impossibility of obtaining government services, education, and legal recognition highlighted the human cost of intricate geographical arrangements. It wasn't until the 2000s that these enclaves were officially settled through diplomatic accords that streamlined borders, enabling citizens to get official citizenship and stabilizing governance in these formerly divided regions. These enclaves show how human settlement patterns, politics, and history may interact to produce distinctive, occasionally bizarre worlds. Although they are far smaller in size, some of the most peculiar borders in the world have deep symbolic significance. For example, Vatican City, which is about 44 hectares in size and completely encircled by Rome, Italy is the world's smallest independent nation. Vatican City maintains complete sovereignty, including its own postal service, police force, and government, despite its small size. Every meter represents political and religious independence, and its limits are closely watched. Despite its brief length, the border symbolizes the lasting influence of history as well as the unique influence of religion on international recognition and sovereignty. Boundaries that conflict with human cultural realities are exemplified by the island of New Guinea. Although the island is split between Papua New Guinea and Indonesia, native groups frequently reside on both sides of the international border. The current border has minimal effect on these people's everyday life or cultural continuity because they have lived in the area for generations, mostly unaffected by outside political pressures. This demonstrates how imposed borders frequently do not correspond with human geography, resulting in artificial divisions that may be important from a legal standpoint, but insignificant from a social one. The Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, between North and South Korea on the Korean Peninsula serves as a striking example of the possible repercussions of human war on borders. Since the Korean War armistice in 1953, the 40-kilometer-wide DMZ has been used as a buffer zone and is highly guarded. It is still one of the world's most guarded areas, and it is nearly impossible to cross. Here, the border is more than just a line on a map. It is an actual, strictly enforced reality that defines global geopolitics, safety, and sovereignty. The DMZ serves as a reminder that boundaries can also be used as instruments of security and control, impacting millions of lives even in the absence of traditional settlements or communities living there. Lastly, a border experience that goes beyond even distance and into time is offered by the Diomede Islands in the Bering Strait. The United States and Russia, respectively, own the two islands, which are only 4 kilometers apart. Moving from one island to another is like traveling from yesterday into tomorrow because of the international dateline. Despite their physical proximity, the islands are divided by a temporal dimension, resulting in one of the planet's most peculiar border occurrences. Geographical proximity does not correspond with chronological continuity in the unique reality experienced by locals and visitors, proving that boundaries are not limited to geography, but may also alter perception. Boundaries take many odd and remarkable forms throughout continents. From the broad plains of North America to the jungles and mountains of Asia, from the huge landscapes of Europe to the deserts and beaches of Africa, and from the dense forests of South America to the enormous plains of North America. They are frequently shaped by the intricate interactions of geography, history, and human decision-making, and they are not necessarily tidy, straight lines shown on a map. Instead, they twist and bend in ways that challenge our expectations. Certain borders provide an apparent logical divide of area by following natural features like rivers or mountain ranges. Others are wholly the result of human compromise, colonial agreements, or the caprices of ancient feudal lords. But for the people who live along them, these lines define nationality, access to resources, government, and even identity itself. They are more than just boundaries. Borders frequently produce anomalies that defy our comprehension of how countries and territory may coexist in space. They remind us that the world is frequently far more complex than it looks on a flat map, challenging traditional ideas of geography and sovereignty. Ceuta and Melilla, two Spanish colonies located on Africa's northern coast, are one of the most striking examples of borders defying traditional geography. These cities are completely encircled by Moroccan territory, despite being a part of Spain and the European Union. Kaliningrad, a Russian enclave on the Baltic Sea, is another striking outlier in Eastern Europe. Kaliningrad is a portion of Russian territory that is fully contained within the European Union and is divided from mainland Russia by Lithuania and Poland. Its inhabitants lead a contradictory life. They are administratively and culturally Russian, but they are physically surrounded by EU countries with distinct legal systems, currencies, and social mores. Kaliningrad is a prime example of how populations can be isolated by political boundaries, resulting in areas with distinct strategic, economic, and cultural significance. Some of the world's most intricate boundaries are found in South Asia. Historically, there have been hundreds of tiny enclaves between Bangladesh, Nepal, and India. Communities that were frequently cut off from their home nation as a result of these enclaves left residents stateless and unable to use government services for decades. These enclaves have just lately been officially included into their respective countries. This history demonstrates the long-lasting impacts of past treaties and colonial divides, as well as the profound human ramifications that complicated borders can produce. Even the tiniest borders in the world can have a big impact. The world's smallest independent nation is Vatican City, which is completely encircled by Rome, Italy. Its sovereignty may occupy only 44 hectares, yet the Vatican maintains full governance, including its own law enforcement, postal system, and legal institutions. Despite its minuscule size, this tiny enclave demonstrates the symbolic power of borders, where a few meters of land can represent centuries of religious authority and international recognition. Boundaries occasionally contradict human cultural reality on islands and in isolated areas. Tribes have long resided on both sides of the island of New Guinea, which is divided between Indonesia and Papua New Guinea. Their cultural traditions and social cohesiveness are unaffected by political limits, underscoring the ways in which boundaries imposed from above may not be consistent with the real human experience. In a similar vein, the Diomede Islands in the Bering Strait exhibit an uncommon temporal anomaly. Despite being only 4 kilometers apart and separated by the international date line, moving from one island to the other feels like traveling from yesterday into tomorrow. One of the most bizarre border experiences on Earth is created here by the convergence of geography and time. We can appreciate the intricacy and beauty of human geography when we comprehend these boundaries. They demonstrate how, despite their value, maps are oversimplifications that seldom fully convey the richness of real experience. There are tales of survival, cooperation, struggle, and inventiveness hidden behind each line. Borders serve as an example of the ongoing balancing act between geography and culture, history and modernity, and control and freedom. They have a real impact on the world we live in, how we connect with one another, and even who we are. These boundaries invite us to investigate the complex relationship between territory, identity, and human experience, question presumptions, and pique our interest. They serve as a reminder that although maps are helpful tools, the real world is much more complex, intriguing, and constantly surprising. If these crazy borders blew your mind, hit subscribe and join us for more unbelievable stories from around the world. You won't want to miss what's coming next.